Also in the box, and I don't remember where this came from, it's probably some sort of G.I. Joe item, but it's a little mesh black backpack to put over Chewbacca, or whoever you wanted to, and you have a drawstring there. So this was perfect for doing Chewbacca when he's got C-3PO on his back, but I never had another 3PO that I could break apart to do that with. So this sort of was probably a planned custom that went nowhere. I'd like to thank the Academy. Now then, you've probably been patiently watching this video to find out what was on the little business card that I found in the box with my 12-inch Star Wars doll collection. And if you've been keeping count, we're up to 11 12-inch dolls, and we have yet to do number 12. Now, not the 12th one that I bought. That was Han Solo. He was the very last one that I needed. So Jawa comes before Han, and Ben and the Stormtroopers and R2 and 3PO all come before Han. Clearly, I already had Vader, Luke, Leia, Chewie, and Boba Fett. Now, at a certain point, I stopped looking at my childhood toys with this nostalgic fondness, and I began looking at them with a more critical eye of someone going, ooh, I messed that up. I want to restore that. Not necessarily for resale value, but just to make them as good as they once had been. One thing was that the 12-inch doll's white clothes were beginning to look extremely dingy, and I couldn't exactly figure out why at first, but I would go over to a neighbor's house and I'd be like, well, his is nice and white. What's going on there? A little substance in the air at my house called nicotine. I had never smoked. I still to this day have never taken a single drag off of a cigarette in my life. You can thank childhood asthma for that. But the rest of my family smoked. One sister I know tried it briefly. Other sister, both parents, smokers. My mom tells a story about the first time my sister smoked in front of her. They were driving and in the car, and just out of habit, my sister hit the cigarette lighter, pulled out her pack, lit one, and she's like, I just lit a cigarette in front of my mother. And my mom's like, well, if you've got another, I'll take one. So, it was a different time. It was a different time. But yeah, I went to the cast party for Little Shop of Horrors, and I had a t-shirt that I had made for the director. I made one for the guy that played Seymour, Randy, and I made one for the director, Donnie, and I made one for myself because I'd been the voice of the plant. And Donnie takes it, and he's like, it reeks of nicotine. And that was the first moment that I had that piece of the puzzle, that it was nicotine that was staining my toys on the vinyl of their faces, on their white clothing. They also had marks on their faces from banging up against Darth Vader when I would play. Luke had black paint from his lightsaber's hilt on his fingers. So, coincidentally, the sister that I just mentioned, the one that was smoking in front of Mom, in the early 90s, she introduces me to a woman named, now it comes into play, Nobadean. So Nobadean's son, who I believe had passed away already at that point, had traveled and traveled and traveled, and wherever he went, he would buy his mom a doll. To the point that they had to construct a giant Quonset hut in the backyard to house her dolls. Now, the shelving was all just raw plywood, and instead of glass, it was just chicken wire. She had a little gift shop in the front. And the first day that I went, I asked her some questions about how to clean the dolls and everything, and she recommended a couple of products. She recommended Fantastic for cleaning the vinyl of their faces, and she recommended some detergent for cleaning the white clothes. And it reminds me of another story where my grandmother, my sister, the oldest sister, had gotten a stain on something, and she was trying to clean it, and my grandmother said, I'll show you how to clean that. And my sister's like, I'm going to get some old country wisdom here. It's going to be some kind of, take a lemon and cut it in half and sprinkle salt on it and rub it. No. My grandmother walks over to the cabinet and she goes, yeah, I'll show you how to clean it. It's called XN7. And it was like the latest cleansing product on the market. My sister was like, man. So, But Nobadean was this older woman who's recommending to me exactly what the best on-the-shelf products were to clean these toys that were already becoming vintage in the 90s. So I did. I followed her advice, and I got the smudges and the dinginess off of the vinyl of the dolls' faces and hands, and then also I laundered the outfits for Luke and Leia. And my first wife and I were living in an apartment at the time, and she was gone to work, and I was in the sink in the bathroom, scrubbing these little outfits and everything, and I hung them up all to dry. And when she came home, I met her at the room. I'm like, come here. You marched her in there to the bathroom, and I pointed at these tiny, tiny little clothes, and I said, what have you done to the laundry? Huh. It's kind of odd. Not long after that, we weren't married anymore. I digress. So, the first day that I'm at Nobadean's Quonset hut touring her toys, and we wound up in the gift shop, and she gives me her business card. And I looked at it and I said, oh, Putnam. I played a character named Putnam in a play one time. And she goes, no, it's Putman. I flipped the card around and I said, Putnam. And she goes, I just bought these. That was not the last time in my life that I caught a typo on somebody's materials like that. And so one day, before I got Han, I got an item that had previously been in Nobadean's collection, and it joined mine. And it was this large size IG-88. He's a little bit taller than Boba Fett here, the only other character that they made from The Empire Strikes Back, both bounty hunters, for the large size collection. But he's almost exactly the same height as Vader or Chewbacca. I think in the 4-inch line of toys, he's taller than them. So they scaled him down slightly for the 12-inch. And this one's incomplete. He's missing his bandolier. He's missing his long rifle. He does have his short gun, which obviously would be better than this gun that they made for the Stormtroopers. So occasionally that gun joins these guys instead of hanging out with IG-88. But they have a little holster here to put the other gun, and it's just a piece of string. That is a sound you won't forget. Hey, I think Stormtroopers might be trying to sneak up on us. Now, I don't think she really wanted to part with her IG-88. After all, her son had given it to her, and he was now deceased, but she was deciding to downsize her collection. And she put a 3-digit price on this guy. Well, the lowest 3-digit price you could have. But I wanted it, and one day my niece was wagging around a doll and said that my mom had bought her that doll and had paid the same amount of money for that doll. And I jokingly said, well, what are you going to buy for me that costs that much? And she's like, go get my wallet. So this is probably one of the last items in my Star Wars collection that my mother purchased for me. So into the 90s, she still bought me this. So thank you, Mom. And it did have the price written on the chest in magic marker. But thankfully, the same person that sold this to me had taught me how to clean marks like that off of my 12-inch dolls. So thank you to Nobadean for the solution to the nicotine and the other problems. Nicotine and Nobadean. So I looked up the address on the business card when I found it. And the last time that I was back in the area in Alabama, I drove around trying to find it. My oldest son and my wife and I, and we could not locate this specific road anymore. So I asked my sister, the one that had introduced me to Nobadean, and she said that house may have been demolished when they widened the road. So chances are that beautiful Quonset hut full of toys that her son had given her, even if Nobadean were still alive, is gone. And that's just one of those things that, it goes to the toy collector in me, and it's just like, that's so heartbreaking. As if the story weren't heartbreaking enough that the son had passed away, but then the memories of the son were all gone. So that gives me a little lump in my throat, and that's why this is a treasured piece in my collection. So every one of the dolls in my collection has some kind of a story to tell. They don't always have all their pieces, but they all have their memories. And thank you for allowing me to share that with you. Thank you for watching.